Hello everyone, and welcome to the Biblical Bookworm. My name is Elizabeth, and for today's video I planned something slightly unusual for my channel, and the idea is that I'd like to summarize the main points from the Sunday sermons of the Curé of Ars. I listened to the 20-hour version on YouTube, and as I believe that relatively few people will do the same thing, I decided to make this video about it because in my opinion the sermons contained some interesting and inspiring pieces of advice and information. So the topics for today are first a sort of motivational part where the Curé of Ars gives reasons why we should follow Christ instead of the world. And we all know that we should do that, so that's not why I'll summarize it. But the main benefit of that part is that the Curé of Ars shows why it's actually not that hard, but practical to follow Christ. After that, I'll also talk about temptations, a little bit about God's love, and finally about daily devotions. Before I start, let me give you some information about the Curé of Ars. He's also known as Saint John Vianney, and he was a French Catholic priest who is the patron saint of parish priests now. His name, Curé of Ars, means parish priest of Ars in French. He became known for his deep devotion to the sacrament of confession and his ability to connect with people from all walks of life. He would often spend up to 16 hours a day in the confessional, listening to the confessions of the thousands of people who came to see him. He was also known for his deep devotion to the Blessed Virgin Mary and his strong faith in the Eucharist. He died on August 4th, 1859, and was canonized by the Catholic Church in 1925. Let's start with a Bible quote here, namely Matthew 6:24. No one can serve two masters. Either you will hate the one and love the other, or you will be devoted to the one and despise the other. You cannot serve both God and money. Now, the Curé of Ars said something along the lines of, if someone deceives us, we don't trust him anymore, but the world deceives us all the time, and we love it. I'd like to expand on this topic a bit and share my thoughts because I think that it's an important topic. So, what are examples of those deceptions of the world? For example, basically all billionaires say that money can't buy you happiness, but still people envy their wealth and try to choose the money because they think that that will make them happier in some way. That's an example of a deception of the world. Another example would be that people want to look like the current beauty ideal, only to realize that once you reach that goal, you're likely even less satisfied with your appearance than you were before. You might not be aware of it, but there's a thing called body dysmorphia, which is the term that describes the phenomenon that anorexic people think they're fat or muscular people think they're small. Or something that I see really often is single people who envy the people around them who get married, or in general singles who are unsatisfied with being single. That's another deception because just listen to the accounts of all the married people, for example, on Pins with Aquinas, or think about people you know who are in unhappy marriages. Trust God with whatever state you're currently in, as He knows what's best for you. There are countless examples of this, and I really wanted to name some of them here because I think that it's important to be aware of those deceptions. And the next time you're jealous of someone, just remind yourself that you have no idea what you're actually being jealous of, and maybe the very thing you envy causes much trouble to that person. You know, they say that not all that glitters is gold. If you think about it, most that glitters is not gold. I'm not saying don't pursue your goals, do your thing. Just remember that when it doesn't work out, God allowed that to happen because He loves you, and without doubt, what happened was the best thing that could happen to you in that particular situation. Just trust God. By the way, if you're aware of other deceptions of that sort, feel free to share them in the comments. Now, let's get back to the book. The Curé of Ars also said that we have less to suffer in following the cross than in serving the world. Think about what people are willing to suffer in order to reach their goals in the world. They starve themselves, they get sleep deprived, or they get burned out. So you don't choose between a cross and pleasure, but you have to choose between a cross that merits you eternity in heaven and a cross that maybe earns you a six-pack. He also pointed out that the worldling is more consistent to please his master and make sacrifices for him than we are in serving God, which has certainly some truth to it. What I also found interesting was that the Curé of Ars stressed the importance or the benefits of at least a basic knowledge of the Christian faith. One thing he said was that basic knowledge of Christianity is necessary for absolution. What he meant by basic knowledge here is, as he explains, that every Catholic should know the most important Catholic prayers, like the Our Father, the Hail Mary, the Creed, the Confiteor, the three acts of faith, hope, and charity, the commandments of God, and an act of contrition. Here I'd like to say that I don't recommend listening to his sermons if you are someone who tends to have scruples, because he is very strict with his requirements for a good confession, and a comment in the audio version of the sermons explained that most theologians disagree with his strict requirements. Just know that he advises people to pray to the Holy Ghost before an examination of conscience, before they go to confession. I think that's nothing that will surprise anyone. And another benefit of knowledge about our faith is, as he says, that for the instructed person there is hope, even if they go astray, because they know the right way, how to go back to their religion. Regarding temptations, I'd like to read some passages from the sermons where he explains who the devil tempts most. Whom does the devil pursue most? Perhaps you're thinking that it must be those who are tempted most. These would undoubtedly be the habitual drunkards, the scandalmongers, the immodest and shameless people who wallow in moral filth, and the miser who hoards in all sorts of ways. No, my dear brethren, no, it's not these people. On the contrary, the devil despises them, or else he holds on to them, lest they not have a long enough time in which to do evil, because the longer they live, the more their bad example will drag souls into hell. And then he also explains which souls are actually the most tempted. So you will ask me, who then are the people most tempted? They are these, my friends. Note them carefully. The people most tempted are those who are ready, with the grace of God, to sacrifice everything for the salvation of their poor souls, who renounce all those things which most people eagerly seek. It is not one devil only who tempts them, but millions seek to entrap them. He then says what the two main temptations for those people are, and in short, those are fear of men and scruples. Here's what he said. The first temptation, my dear brethren, which the devil tries on anyone who has begun to serve God better, is in the matter of human respect. He will no longer dare to be seen around. He will hide himself from those with whom heretofore he had been mixing and pleasure-seeking. If he should be told that he has changed a lot, he will be ashamed of it. What people are going to say about him is continually in his mind, to the extent that he no longer has enough courage to do good before other people. If the devil cannot get him back through human respect, he will induce an extraordinary fear to possess him that his confessions are not good, that his confessor does not understand him, that whatever he does will be all in vain, that he will be damned just the same, that he will achieve the same result in the end by letting everything slide as by continuing to fight, because the occasions of sin will prove too many for him. He explains that temptations are necessary to show us our weakness, and they help us understand that we need God's help to get to heaven and can't get there on our own. The Curé of Ars also said that the devil hides people's wickedness and only reveals it to them before death to make them despair, which is also a temptation. In his sermons, he also defined perseverance, which I found interesting, and he said that it is the willingness to sacrifice everything rather than commit a sin. In his sermons, the Curé of Ars quotes St. Ambrose, who said that God esteems our soul so much that if there had been only one soul to save, God would not consider it too great a sacrifice to die for this one soul only. Or as the Lord said to St. Teresa, "Thou art so agreeable to me that if there was no heaven, I would create one just for you." In his sermons, he also talks about not having time to pray. You have not the time. But tell me, ungrateful creatures, if God had called you to die that night, would you have exerted yourselves? If he had sent you 3 or 4 months of illness, would you have exerted yourselves? Go away, you miserable creatures, you deserve to have God abandon you in your blindness and leave you thus to perish. We find that it is too much to give him a few minutes to thank him for the graces which he is giving us at every instant. You must get on with your work, you say. That, my dear people, is where you are greatly mistaken. You have no other work to do except to please God and to save your souls. All the rest is not your work. If you do not do it, others will. But if you lose your soul, who will save it? And finally, he also addresses making the sign of the cross, and he says that by making a sign of the cross before each activity, we offer it up and gain merit for eternity, even if the activity itself is just our ordinarily daily duty that seems to be worthless. Before beginning our work, my dear brethren, never fail to make the sign of the cross. Do not imitate those people without religion who dare not to do this because they are in company. Offer quite simply all your difficulties to God and renew from time to time this offering. For by that means you will have the happiness of drawing down the blessings of heaven on yourself and all you do. Just think, my dear brethren, how many acts of virtue you can practice by behaving in this way without making any change in what you're actually doing. If you work with the object of pleasing God and obeying His commandments, which order you to earn your bread by the sweat of your brow, that is an act of obedience. If you want to expiate your sins, you are making an act of penance. If you want to obtain some grace for yourself or others, it is an act of hope and charity. That's been it for today. I hope you liked the video. See you next week. God bless and bye!